Hello, my friends. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. And to do so, I review a lot of stuff, mostly movies and television. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Mr. Robot. And probably the title is going to say something like, I was unable to finish this. Because I was unable to finish this. And I think that this is the third show and I think the second in a row where I am unable to finish it, but I don't think that the show is necessarily bad. And the other two shows would be Atlanta and Barry. And I will talk a little bit about why I'm not finishing this one in 1 minute. And I think maybe it is. So those first two I didn't finish because of quality issues. I didn't finish them because I kind of knew where the story was going. And in this one, I do have an issue with it, and I'll tell you. I will share my issue with it if you stick around for the video. But for the rest of the video. So first of all, Mr. Robot was created by Sam Ismail, and it stars Rami Malek, Carly Chaikin, Portia Doubleday, and Marlon Volstrom, as well as Christian Slater in a very important role. So, what is the plot of Mr. Robot? Wow, that is a surprisingly hard question to answer because I believe that this show is one of the best in television history about having plot twists. And I'm not going to reveal any of them here because I don't think that the plot twists are necessarily important to me and my opinion. Like, I think I can examine my opinion of the show, and I don't need to explain the plot twists because I think some people would get a lot out of this show. So I don't know if you can watch it and know what the plot twists are. I really don't know, so I'm not gonna like risk it. So, Mr. Robot is about a guy, a hacker, and his name is Elliot. And Elliot, he decides, well, I can't really I can't really say exactly what Elliot decides and what other characters decide because Elliot has a lot of psychological problems. He is broken psychologically. And that's why the show is interesting because it's all told basically through his perspective, and he is one of the most unreliable narrators in television history. So it's really hard to say what is real and what isn't real. And I think I'm at the beginning of the third season where I finished, and I had to like actually, do some research about what characters were real and what characters are not real because he imagines characters, he imagines situations, he doesn't remember conversations that he has, and uh, he he has so dis what's that called? Dissociative identity disorder. And that is basically where you have multiple personalities, and I don't know, I'm not going to read the whole thing about it, but I actually saw that, and I might be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw that a lot, like, this is one of those disorders that's very connected to media portrayals. So if you have, like, a very popular media portrayal, then you have like hundreds of cases, and the actual number of cases might be significantly lower. There might be, I don't know, 10. I heard like a very small number, like there's 10 people with this problem in the United States. So at any given moment. So it's really, really small, actually. But recently on TikTok, like maybe 5, 6 years ago, there was a big trend of people saying that they had this. So, and that kind of fed into people claiming to have this. But this is fiction, and Elliot is a fictional character, so he can have it, and many more fictional characters have had this than in real life. So that's clear. But anyway, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. But if I am, you can argue about it in the comments. But I'm not talking about like real life examples, I'm talking about this fictional example. So there's a reason he doesn't remember some of the conversations that he has. There's a reason, and there's a reason why sometimes events go in one way and sometimes events go in another way. Yeah. So as I said, some of the twists are quite brilliant. And I think because we see things from his perspective, that's why the twists work. And I have to say, sometimes I am good at knowing when a twist is coming, and sometimes I'm not good at all. And I think in this particular case, I was not good at all at it because I think the way they're telling the story is quite brilliant. And I think Malik does a very good job. I think this is his best role ever. He does a really good job as Elliot, as somebody who is both like broken and tender and also really, really angry. So let's go back to the question of why I don't want to finish this. I don't think it's a question of quality, although I do have some reservations about the story. And I did read ahead a bit about what actually happens, so I do know the explanation, the in-story explanation for different events, which I'm not going to share with you because if you're interested in this show, you should watch. But why do I think it doesn't work? So, at its core, you have Elliot and you have this personality, which is shown to us as Elliot, and he is like interacting with like different people throughout the show. And there is this plot that he or some other personality of his has set forth in motion. Maybe. We don't know. Right? But I think that the problem I have is that he is able to get a group of people together who are fiercely loyal to him. Now, one person is loyal to him because that's his sister, so it makes sense. And another person is not involved in the beginning, but she's loyal because they grew up together. Those two characters make sense why they would be loyal to Elliot, despite his clear mental struggles. But then you have other people who see Elliot talking to himself, arguing with himself, forgetting like big things about what's happened in like major like conversations he's had with these people. And this is the thing I don't buy. I don't buy that people would be like so incredibly loyal to Elliot. And it's not like everybody is incredibly loyal to Elliot, but there is this one guy who clearly sees there's something wrong with him, and then he's like, yes, my leader, my guru, you are the person for me, basically. And that doesn't make any sense. And I think like I think that this plot would be very hard for somebody to achieve who was mentally stable, let alone somebody who is completely off his rocker, you know. I know that's not the most sensitive way of putting it, but he's not functional, I guess is my point. he can't function properly. So how can he do this? And I think the so let's put that aside. That's my main problem with it. But I think one thing that it does really, really well, and they researched this, is like this is the best depiction of hacking, I think, in any kind of media, because it's not just like two people typing at once, trying to do something. It's like they show you things which hackers use, and it's all based in reality. And I'm not a hacker, but my job is somewhat connected to the field. I won't tell you exactly what it is. I'll be a little bit mysterious. And there are things that they talk about which are things like I know about because of my job and my experience. So they are like saying like real things. So that's really quite interesting to see. And Elliot is portrayed as being like this brilliant hacker, and he may be, but he is completely not functional. And then I think the other problem I have with the story of Mr. Robot is you can tell that it was created pre-Trump, and Trump was elected in the middle of its run. So basically, the show posits that there's this huge dark cabal of these brilliant people who have elected Trump, and people like him because they want to control what's going on. They want to control the narrative. And personally, I think that a lot of interested parties did help Trump win the election, like Russia. But fundamentally, it wasn't like great behind the scenes machinations. It was and I'm sorry to say this might be a little bit offensive, but it was the sheer audacious stupidity of Americans that elected Trump. The first time, maybe not so much. But the second time, you know what you're getting, and you're like, yeah, I have a pudding made of human excrement. Let me digest that. Lovely. Audacious stupidity. It wasn't any kind of like intellectual machinations. It was this audacious stupidity. And in the first part too, as well, like part one of Trump's debacle of a presidency, you know. So I don't think that you needed any big conspiracies to get Trump to be president. And maybe actually it does kind of make sense, Mr. Robot, the feeling you get when you watch Mr. Robot, because there was a lot of anger going on when Trump was first elected. And I think like it's kind of hard to maybe realize this because all of this stuff happened many years ago now, which is crazy how time works when you get older. But like I remember how people felt in 2016, and this was like pre-pandemic, but people felt like instability, right? Because you had like from September 11th until that moment, you had crisis after crisis after crisis. And one of the biggest ones was the Great Recession, which led to Barack Obama being elected. And you had like, the terrorist group called F Society is kind of like a reflection of Occupy Wall Street. But Occupy Wall Street kind of faded after a few months, it feels like. And it never became like a successful revolutionary program for America, whereas America kind of drifted into like really right wing xenophobia, nationalism, and all of that stuff as a solution to their problems. But you know, it, were they directed in that direction? Yeah, a little bit, but again, it's like the pudding, the excrement pudding. They were eating it themselves. They chose that, right? So I don't know. Like I get the feeling, I get the vibe from Mr. Robot, but I think the what is that word? The diagnosis was completely wrong. about why people felt that way and what they would want to kind of overcome that, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't think that Mr. Robot is necessarily like a political show, even though it has a lot of politics. Oh, yeah, maybe that's my other problem about it is that the show is trying to do two things. It's trying to focus on Elliot and Elliot's problems and his world, and it's also trying to focus on the world that they live in, right? Like this political, social, economic stuff. And I think it doesn't actually work that well because Elliot is such an unreliable narrator. And I think when you kind of anchor it in real events, especially when we know what happens with Trump, that it wasn't some great intellectual conspiracy to elect Trump, you know, it kind of ring the political aspects, the sociological aspects of it ring a little bit hollow for me. Although I have to say, it's kind of like a situation where I understand why it's brilliant, but I have problems with it. And I said something like that about Attack on Titan, and people really didn't like that. They're like, "You, how can you not like this?" But I think with Attack on Titan, I just didn't like the idea, right? I didn't like the idea of the story. And I understand that the story was told brilliantly. But yeah, maybe this is the similar situation where I don't really like how the story is anchored. But that doesn't mean that it's not good and it's not brilliant. Because as I said, there are two things, four things, but two. Sorry if you're British. Um, two things if you that make this show much better than other shows. And the first thing, they're connected, which is that Elliot is a very unreliable narrator, and we see things mostly through his perspective. So the things that we see from his perspective, which is like 80% of the show, we can't really trust. And because of that, the show is able to do very significant plot twists that just are stunning and astounding. So, if you've never seen it and you kind of like gritty thriller kind of shows, very, very intellectual shows, you'll like this. Did I like it? Yes and no, but not enough to finish, I have to say. I won't finish it because I just don't like the idea of this story. And I know where it's going because I read ahead. But all right, if you like my reviews, what you could do is you could give me a subscription. You could subscribe on my YouTube channel. You could like this video. You could leave comments. Like if you argue with me, that's actually great because then I can kind of understand where other people are coming from and why they like something. Yeah, and if you're listening, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of March. A little bit ambitious, but if you like it, please subscribe. And yeah, if you're listening on Spotify, please give me a follow. All right, thanks. Have a nice day. Bye bye.